When I was 6 years old, I was transferred to a private Catholic school. Whenever my mom would drop me off at school, I would start crying because I was at her side most of the time. And even though I went to preschool and kindergarten, both at separate schools, I don't really remember crying. I probably did though, to be honest. Plus, my new teacher scared me a little bit because she had to scream over the kids, second graders. And I always assumed she was yelling at me, and I do not take well to people yelling at me. So to help with this, my teacher let me sit at her desk every morning. And although nobody really thought it would help, it did. And she ended up being one of my most favorite teachers of all time. And not just because she had my last name. I was super shy, but I don't really remember not having friends at that school. It was a really small school and there was only one class per grade. So I befriended all the girls, or at least most of them. I didn't talk to boys because I think it's because society and like cartoons and books and all that stuff kind of gave me the idea that boys were like a different species and they're just so different, and why would I talk to boys? So I didn't talk to boys for a very long time. Like a very long time. Like it's embarrassing how long it's been. When it comes to my art back then, my preferred medium was crayons. More specifically, Crayola crayons. I wasn't a big fan of rose art. Never touched the stuff. Although I was known for stealing restaurant crayons. Because free crayons. Apparently, I used to carry crayons in my pockets. And they would melt when my mom would wash my clothes. I would also leave crayons in her car. And I drive that car now, actually. And if I look at the back seat, I can still see the stains of melted crayons. I haven't changed much, to be honest. When I was 10 years old, I moved to a new city, completely different from what I lived in before, and that meant I had to go to a new school. I was one out of the two new students, and although the other girl made friends really easily, I did not. I actually would sit at a bench during recess and lunch and watch all the other kids play, and I just sat there by myself. I actually befriended a yard supervisor who had my same first name, and I ended up meeting her somewhat recently at my first job. We ended up being co-workers. So that's pretty cool how that works out. But yeah, I sat at a bench alone for a very long time, and my mom felt really bad because I would cry every night because I didn't have friends and I didn't want to go to school the next morning. Eventually, a group of girls came up to me and asked me to play with them, and I became their friend. But I use that term very loosely because they were not good friends. At that time, I wanted to be a fashion designer. Not really because I was super into fashion, judging by the way I dressed back then, but because I thought it was the only job I could get that had to do with art. Like, I was actually dead set on being a fashion designer. My family would get me fashion designing games for Christmas and my birthday. I drew a lot of clothes that I wanted to design, which were not good. I graduated from crayons, and I moved on to colored pencils and markers. I did not know digital art existed at this time. At age 13, I was in middle school, and I had a whole new set of friends. These friends were actually genuinely good, and I don't keep in touch with any of them anymore, so it's kind of a bummer. This was my quote-unquote tomboy phase. I had long hair before, but I chopped it off to shoulder length because I thought it would look good, but it didn't. In the picture I draw, my hair's a little messy, but it doesn't look too bad. But in real life, I look like a sentient yield sign. Even though I thought this would be a simple haircut, it ended up being kind of a big deal to my dad. He hated it, and he yelled at me and my mom for it, because to him, girls can only have long hair. And he also didn't like that I was wearing pants and flannel shirts. He made me go out with my stepmom and buy dresses and skirts and high heels. And he made me walk around the house in high heels because that's what a woman is supposed to wear. And even though back then it wasn't that big of a deal to me, it's still something that I remember, like, very clearly. And, I don't know, that's just a fun fact. So now you have that fact. But even though that big mess happened, I will thank my dad for giving me my very first laptop on my 13th birthday. That laptop changed my life because it brought the internet to me. I mostly used that laptop for dress-up games. I was obsessed. I had an account on iDressUp, which isn't up anymore. It's a bummer. I would visit Roy World a lot when it was a Korean dress-up game site instead of the Lifetime version of it. And dress-up games were really important to me because it ended up being a huge inspiration for my art. And my laptop was also used for writing because back then I wanted to be an author. I would carry this little thick notebook in my pocket and I would jot down writing ideas. And this is actually around the time where I learned about DeviantArt. I made an account and I didn't post art because I didn't really draw too much art. And this is actually when I learned about digital art. Believe it or not, I hated digital art. I despised it because I thought, in my little baby mind, that the computer did all the work for you. And it wasn't until like a year later when I first started digital art that I realized, wait a minute, the computer doesn't help you, like, at all. Okay, maybe it does a little, but this is freaking hard. I guess we all learned that someday though. When I was 16 years old, I was in high school, and I didn't have a lot of friends. I feel like I can start every year with that. I will say that when I was 14 or 15, I had a lot of friends, but I kind of drifted away from them, and sometimes on purpose, because at 16, everybody was trying so hard to grow up. Everybody was rushing into intimate relationships, drinking, drugs, rebelling. And I was just not ready to grow up. And I feel like I'm still not ready to grow up. So I ended up with very little friends. I was very new to digital art. I think I got my first tablet at age 15, perhaps. I don't want to double check. But a year of digital art is still pretty beginner. This is when I made my OCs, like the ones that I still use today. I actually created Luca when I was 15, so I already had him for a year at this point. It was kind of sad though, because in elementary school and in middle school, I was known as the artist girl, the girl who draws. Look at her art, it's on her binder, just look at it. But in high school, nobody really cared that I drew, unless it was for a project. I wasn't known as the artist girl, and instead I was known as, the girl with boobles. And I ended up kind of embracing what I was known for. I dressed girlier at this point, but my clothes were also kind of revealing. I wore low-cut tops all the time. And it was just something that I had that not a lot of other girls in my school had. So I was proud in a way. It's very different now, but high school is it's high school. Weird. At age 19, I was in college, and I didn't have a major. I still don't. So I was just kind of going to get all my general ed classes out of the way. I had just started driving the year before. Driving was honestly the scariest thing to me. I refused to drive, and my mom had to force me. And I did it. I mean, I drive now. I just had to be pushed, and it was great. And I felt more independent than I ever was. Except that at this age, I still didn't have my first job. And I wouldn't have my first job until I was 20 years old. Most people get their first jobs at like 15 or 16. I hated myself for not having a job. And I hated myself for not driving. And I hated myself for not having a major. And I never really self-harmed, but I don't know, I think this is considered self-harm. But around this age, I was so angry for not having a job that I would like dig my nails into my arm or my palm, and I would scratch myself really hard to leave marks. I was just really upset with myself, and I hated myself. And fun fact. And I was very confused about who I was. This is something I've never admitted, at least to the internet, because my family watches my videos. But at this age, actually at 16 a little bit, but at this age, mostly at 19, I was questioning my sexuality. From high school, I kind of knew, that I wasn't 100% straight. But in college, my sexuality became a huge part of me. It was what most of my art was focused on. At this time, I moved from DeviantArt to Tumblr because I didn't like DeviantArt's policies, and also I was avoiding the person who broke my heart. I was, yes, at 19, I was going through my very first heartbreak all by myself because it was not with a boy. But yeah, it was a really tough time for me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what to do. I was going through this new thing all on my own, and it sucked. But at the same time, I feel like I was really happy at this point because, like I said, I felt really independent, driving myself to school and just, planning my own classes and stuff like that. It was really great. Besides comic strips on my sexuality though, my art also focused on fan art, mostly YouTuber fan art. A lot of Game Grumps fan art, some Markiplier stuff, and anime fan art. This is actually when I first watched Haikyuu, which is, as you know, my most favorite anime of all time. And this is around the time that I started building an online audience due to the comic strips. They were very #relatable. So yeah. And now we fast forward to now, age 23. The amount of times people ask me if I'm going to school is overwhelming. And every time somebody asks me if I'm going to school, I say, oh, I actually took the semester off. But in reality, I took the entire year off. I still don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. Not knowing what I'm gonna do is like this huge wall that I can't climb over, and it makes me not want to go to school because I feel like I'm wasting my time. By now, at age 23, I have had 3 different jobs. And all of the friends that I have now are from my first job, and they're genuinely good. Like, these are some of the greatest friends I've ever had. And I even tricked one of them into dating me. I actually used a love potion. I'm gonna start selling it in my store starting tomorrow though, so in case any of you guys need help, don't worry, I got you. That's a joke, of course, because I don't have a store. But even though I have some really good things going on in my life right now, it's kind of been the worst part of my life. I've had anxiety for a majority of my life, and even though I thought I had social anxiety, turns out I didn't. I'm just shy. But I've had different types of anxiety. It wasn't until March when some kind of incident happened and my anxiety got worse. But it wasn't necessarily just the car anxiety that got worse. It was all anxieties. I was a mess. I went 2 weeks without doing anything. I sat at my desk and I tried not to cry. And then I would get emotionally exhausted by 8 p.m. and go to sleep and wake up at 7 and have anxiety all day for 2 weeks. And it was terrible. I kind of wanted to die. And I wasn't suicidal, but I definitely would not have minded dying. I started looking for a therapist, and now I see one. People have told me for years that I should see a therapist, but I kind of put it off until this big anxiety incident happened, and I knew that I needed help. And I'm still not at a very good place. I don't know who I am still. I don't know what I want to do. I can't tell if I'm happy or not. And I have some really great things. Like I said, I have a great family and great friends and a great relationship, but I'm not sure if I'm happy. And I'm working on it every day. And that's kind of the reason why I haven't been posting a lot this year. I'm sorry for not being there. I'm sorry for leaving you guys for such a long time. And I hope to get better for myself and for you guys. But I hope you understand. And I hope this video helps somebody, because even though it's really hard right now, I'm trying my best to stay positive, and I'm trying my best to help myself and to reach out for help, because one of my biggest issues was reaching out for help. I hate asking people for help because I don't want to be a burden on anyone, but I'm trying to get over that, and hopefully I can inspire one person to look for help. And it might not be from this video, but maybe it'll be from the next video. It probably won't though, because I kind of already know what my next video is, and it's not going to inspire anyone. But that's all I'm going to say now, because this video is too long, as usual. So, thank you for still being here. And thank you for hopefully staying even after this video. Please stay. And I promise that I will not leave. I might not have the greatest upload schedule, even after this video, but I'm never gonna leave. I'm here forever. So, thank you for the support. And thank you for understanding. And thank you for everything. I'll see you guys in the next video. I love you very much. Bye!